Exposed, at my daughter's wedding, I revealed an incredible truth that transformed everything. The church bell rang out across the small town, a beautiful sound echoing the bittersweet truth of the day. Mike's heart raced as he stood, nervous but proud, waiting to walk his daughter Annie down the aisle. Sunlight bathed the neatly trimmed lawns, glistened off polished cars, and illuminated the smiling faces of friends and family. Annie, radiant in her gown, looked like a princess straight out of a fairy tale, and for a moment, Mike felt like the luckiest dad in the world. But then, a shadow crept in. He spotted her future father-in-law, a towering businessman clad in a crisp suit that screamed wealth. Doubt washed over Mike like cold water. Could he ever truly belong in this polished circle? The whispers danced around him like unwanted guests, murmurs of disapproval that hung heavy in the air. A world of successful people surrounded him, and he felt the sting of their judgment. There's the single dad I heard he lost his wife and struggled to make ends meet. The words cut like glass, reminding him of his humble beginnings. He devoted everything to raising Annie after losing his beloved wife, pouring love and resilience into every moment they shared. But here, today, he stood in a war of insecurities, battling a fear he had not felt in years. But as the music swelled and the dance floor opened up, the spotlight shifted. It was time for the father-daughter dance, a cherished moment that wove together memories of laughter, late-night talks, and countless struggles. As Mike took Annie's hand, he felt a flood of emotions, to be proud, yet vulnerable. Tears brimmed in his eyes as he began to share his truth. "Annie, you were adopted during my darkest days, when I barely had a roof over our heads. I loved you fiercely then, and I still do." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, rippling through the crowd. Silence fell, the orchestra halting mid-melody. Gasps and whispered disbelief echoed off the walls, as shock radiated from every corner. The mask Mike wore began to crack, exposing the rawness of his heart. Then her father-in-law charged at him, anger swirling in his eyes. "How dare you? Do you think you can walk into our lives and tarnish this day with your skeletons?" No sooner had the words left his mouth than whispers turned to roars. Community members rallied in support of Mike's truth. Stories of other struggles filled the room, each tale gleaming with authenticity and resilience. They spoke not of wealth but of love, not of status but of support. In that cacophony of voices, Mike found a newfound strength. He realized that wealth may cast shadows, but true family radiates warmth that can never be measured. But would Annie's father-in-law, with his glaring wealth, understand that? Would he bridge the gap of judgment and look beyond social barriers to find the root of their shared humanity? The dance went on, but love and acceptance hung in the balance. What would it take for everyone to redefine family on this unforgettable day? The music pulsed softly again, like a heartbeat, as Mike held Annie close. Her eyes shone with tears, but there was no fear in her gaze, only fierce love and unwavering support. It brought him comfort amidst all that swirling turmoil. People around them began to shift, murmurs transformed into scattered applause and voices raised in quiet empathy. Mike's heartbeat slowed, grounding him in the moment. Yet, amidst the rising tide of acceptance, her father-in-law still seated, arms crossed tightly over his chest. The man's expression twisted in a mix of fury and confusion, as if he couldn't comprehend how light could pierce through the shadows he held so tightly. "Annie deserves better than this, Mike," he finally barked, voice slicing through the air like a knife. But amidst the growing crowd of allies, that knife didn't wound, it just futility echoed in the vibrant air. People were shifting sides, the whole atmosphere charged with an undercurrent of rebellion against old ideals. "Look around, John." Another guest shouted suddenly, standing tall among familiar faces. "Look at this family. Look at how we rally when someone stands up and speaks their truth." Mike glanced around, meeting soft, understanding eyes that painted the walls with warmth. Hope flickered inside him. It was as if the very room was pushing back against the weight of elitism and tradition. "What do you know about family?" John's voice was low, but the hostility was palpable. "This isn't just about you and Annie. This is about respect. But respect had already shifted its definition. Mike opened his mouth, but this time, it was Annie who took the lead. She stepped forward, gripping her father's hand a little tighter. "Respect is knowing where I come from," she stated, her voice ringing loud and firm. "It's knowing the sacrifices my dad made to give me everything I have today. It's knowing love, real love, doesn't have a price tag." Cheers erupted, sending ripples of shock along the aisle. Mike's heart swelled. He had laid bare the foundation of their family, but here was Annie, building up walls of confidence and identity around it. "Today we celebrate love, not class," she continued fiercely. A smile broke the tensions as heads nodded, hands were raised, and the solidarity of shared stories sparked something powerful among the crowd. "The richest men are those who carry their struggles proudly. Just like my dad. You might wear clothes that shine, but we wear love like armor." With that declaration, the room exploded with warmth, cheers, and a decisive shift toward acceptance. Mike's eyes glistened. Yes, his truth had transformed the day, but it was her courage that would cement it. John's stern face faltered, grappling with the overwhelming tide of dissent against him. Mike saw his chance. He stepped beside his daughter, feeling the bond of love that anchored them both. "We may not have everything you do, John," he spoke clearly, no hint of shame in his voice. "But we have something that cannot be bought. We have each other, and we know how to fight for what matters. You may have the keys to your kingdom, but the heart of this family is richer than gold." With that, a wave of determination flooded the dance floor, engulfing Mike and Annie in a sea of support. Their small-town community was rising like a phoenix, ready to defy archaic judgment. But as the revelry began to unfold, Mike could sense the tension still hovering. What would happen tomorrow? Would John truly come around, or would he stand his ground, turning Annie's marriage into a battlefield of power struggles? Love now carried the day, but the fight had just begun. What would it take to truly unite these two families when stark contrasts loomed larger than ever? As the sound of cheers and applause faded, the sense of victory felt fragile in the cool evening air. Mike held Annie close, feeling the warmth radiate between them, but his heart was heavy with uncertainty. John still loomed like a dark cloud overhead, bitterness bleeding into the space that should have been filled with joy. Annie's laughter had a bright ring to it as she spun away to greet friends, but Mike's gaze drifted back to John. The man stood like a statue, arms still crossed tightly, a storm of emotion swirling just beneath the surface. Mike could see the gears grinding in his head. Everything that had just unfolded contradicted a lifetime of beliefs. "Mike!" A familiar voice broke through his thoughts. It was Helen from next door, her eyes bright with excitement. "You were incredible out there. Truly. Annie has never looked more proud. You should be proud." "Thanks, Helen," he replied, forcing a smile. He appreciated her words, but they felt more like band-aids than real solutions. As she went on about how beautiful the ceremony had been, Mike mulled over the tension he felt deep in his gut. Annie returned, her cheeks flushed, excitement woven into her bright smile. "I can't believe that just happened. Did you see the look on my dad's face?" she asked, eyes sparkling. "He didn't expect everyone to fight back." "Yeah, but will he really change?" Mike's voice dropped, a shadow crossing his features. "I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over." Annie's smile faltered slightly. "What if we give him time? He's not a monster. Maybe he just needs to see things differently." "See things differently," Mike echoed, frustration swirling within him. "But what if he never does, Annie? What happens when the shine of this night fades?" Not giving in to the doubt creeping in, Annie placed her hand over his, grounding him. "Tonight was a breakthrough. He's lamenting a world that doesn't exist anymore. We need to be patient. He loves me, he just needs to learn to love us too." Yet as the night wore on, Mike couldn't help but feel swept away by the current of doubt, the apprehension lingering like an unwelcome guest. Even as joyful faces surrounded them, a small part of him remained convinced that John wouldn't let the matter lie. As they made their way to greet more family and friends, they were met with an endless wave of hugs and shared excitement. "We're in this together," a voice called, reinforcing the newfound community around them. Still, that sense of foreboding clung like a whisper in his ear. They were about to move back to the dance floor. The invitation to keep the celebration alive loomed ahead. Just then, a sharp voice cut through the laughter. "Annie!" It was John. The crowd fell silent, all eyes darting toward him. The look on his face was a mix of fury and desperation. "We need to talk. Now." Mike's heart sank at the sight. Annie's face morphed into a muted expression of concern. "Maybe I'll just," she started, but he shook his head, stepping protectively closer to her. "Let us hear him out," Mike said quietly, even as his heart raced. This was it. The moment of truth hung in the air, charged and electric. Annie nodded, squeezing his hand. She straightened her posture, anxiety simmering just below her bright exterior as they squared off against John's furious gaze. "Annie, you can't cloud your vision with all this," John said, voice heavy with accusation. "What you're doing, it's reckless. You have no idea what you're getting into." Each word was a shot that landed harder than the last, and Mike felt the urge to protect Annie surge. The room shifted with anticipation, tension palpable. The stage was set, but for what, he had no idea. But as he looked into Annie's eyes, he knew he couldn't let her face this alone. Just one move from John could change everything again. What confrontation awaited them behind those steel blue eyes, and could they weather the oncoming storm together? "Reckless?" Annie repeated, her voice barely a whisper. The air between them crackled with tension. She stood firm, but Mike could see the tremors of uncertainty dancing in her eyes. "Do you really believe this is a choice worth making?" John's voice rose, a tight coil of anger and fear. "You're not just tarnishing my name, Annie. You're risking everything, the life I've worked for, the family's future." "Dad, this is about who I am," she replied, her chin lifting defiantly. "I'm not backing down. This isn't just a phase or a whim. These people, they're my support. They want what's best for me." Mike's heart raced, feeling it beat loudly against his chest. He could sense how deeply John's words were cutting into her, but she stood her ground. "You don't even see me anymore. These past years, you've been trapped within your own beliefs, unable to see the truth shining right in front of you." The crowd remained silent, tension coating the air like a thick fog. Mike stole a glance at the onlookers. Friends and family stirred uneasily, unsure of how to intervene, unsure of what to say. "Love isn't a choice," Annie continued, her voice gaining strength. "It cannot be dictated by fear or prejudice. I love Mike, and I'm not ashamed of it. You will either be a part of my life or not. But this is who I am." John inhaled sharply, his expression shifting from anger to something more complex. Confusion? Fear? It was hard to pinpoint. He took a step back, dropping his arms to his sides as if the gravity of the moment dropped upon him. Mike felt the urge to step in, but he knew this was Annie's battle. So he held back, watching as the distance between father and daughter shimmered with possibility and pain. "Annie," John paused, searching for the right words. "All these years, I thought I could protect you from the world. But maybe I've been the one holding you back." His voice cracked. "This isn't easy for me." Mike's stomach twisted. Could this be the shift they'd hoped for? "You don't have to agree with everything," Annie's voice softened, a light cutting through the tension. "I just want you to try to understand. If we can reach across the divide, maybe we can find common ground together." Silence stretched. It was as if time stood still, everyone holding their breath, waiting for John to respond. His expression wavered, flickering between hesitation and acceptance. Mike held Annie's hand tighter, feeling hope seep in, but also aware of how fragile it all was. "I don't know if I can," John replied at last. His voice was less combative now, weary, like a man awakened from a long sleep. "Change is hard, especially for someone my age." "Then let us take it slow," Annie suggested. "Let us talk, no rushing. Just be open to who I am." "I want to support you, I really do," John confessed, his voice trembling. "But I don't know how." Annie stepped closer, her heart laid bare between them. "Then let us figure it out together. Let me show you what it's like in my world. Maybe we can help each other." For the first time, John met her gaze fully, and Mike saw the flicker of realization in his eyes. Something was shifting, something they had all been longing for. Just as the tension seemed to begin to unravel, a loud crash echoed through the hall. Everyone jumped, gasping as a stack of chairs toppled over in the corner, shattering the moment. All eyes turned to the mess, confusion palpable. But deep down, Mike felt the germ of hope blooming amidst the chaos. They might have a chance. And as John's gaze returned to Annie, there was something new, a tentative willingness to bridge the gap. Was this the beginning of healing, or just another hurdle in their path? What lay ahead as they ventured into this uncertain territory? The sound of chairs crashing to the floor hung in the air like an unwelcome guest. The brief jolt of chaos brought everyone's attention back to the reality of the moment. Mike could see the way John flinched, glancing over at the mess, as if it symbolized all the disorder in his life right now, his daughter's life. Annie, quick on her feet, shifted her focus to the scattered chairs. "I'll take care of it," she said, a dash of panic in her voice. She hadn't expected her father's breakthrough to be interrupted so abruptly. The moment felt fragile, like a thread ready to snap. As she rushed to the scene, Mike took a step forward, ready to help her, to keep her anchored. But right when he was about to give chase, the crowd erupted in quiet chatter, their murmurs filling the void left by the broken tension. Was that supposed to happen? Someone whispered from the gathered group. This wasn't the moment for distractions, Mike thought. He turned back to John to gauge his reaction. There was an unmistakable change in his demeanor. The anger, though still present, seemed to be intertwined with a burgeoning understanding. Relief washed over Mike, knowing they might still have a chance. "Dad, are you okay?" Annie asked, peeking over her shoulder while gathering up the fallen chairs. I'm fine." "Just startled," John said, rubbing his temples as if trying to soothe away the stress. "It's just a lot to take in, Annie." Mike caught the hint of vulnerability in John's tone. This was progress. "Look, maybe we all need a moment," he offered, stepping into the space between them. "Annie, why don't you give him some time to think?" She paused, her brows knit together, uncertainty flickering across her face. "No, Mike. If we stop now, I might lose him again. I need him to hear me." "Just breathe," Mike encouraged, sensing the tension starting to spiral once more. "You've done the hard part already. Let us not rush it." John watched their exchange, a light of curiosity in his eyes, as if he were trying to process their bond. "I'm not angry anymore," he said slowly, his words toneless yet with a hint of sincerity. "I'm just confused. I have so many questions." "Then ask," Annie urged, dropping the chairs she had collected back onto the floor. "We'll figure this out together. I want you to be part of my life, Dad." The air was thick with apprehension, but Mike could feel an undercurrent of hope. What if this was the moment they all started forging a new relationship? A new understanding? John took a deep breath, his shoulders falling slightly. "You've changed so much, Annie. I feel like I barely know you at all. How did we get here? That's what we need to talk about." She stepped back, her energy only growing. "I'll share everything. The good, the bad, the amazing parts of my world that you've never seen. Will you let me show you?" Before John could respond, Annie continued, "Let us open our hearts and minds. I want you to really see me, the real me, not just the daughter you thought I should be. John opened his mouth but hesitated, caught in a moment of reflection. The crowd around them seemed to hold its breath. Mike could sense their collective anticipation, the way everyone was leaning in, desperate for a resolution. Then, with a deep, shaky breath, John nodded. Okay, I'm willing to try. Her heart soared. Thank you, Dad. Annie exclaimed, her relief palpable. But just as they began to bridge the emotional gap, a familiar face stepped into the room, cool and confident. It was David, the town's mayor, a potent force in both business and community. Hey, what's with all the noise? This is supposed to be a celebration. He called out, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. Every head turned, and for a moment, everything felt uncertain once more. Mike's heart dropped. How would this unexpected interruption affect what was starting to mend? Would David build on their moment or break it apart entirely? With questions brewing, Mike turned back to John and Annie, who locked eyes, their previous energy now tempered with caution. Would this be a setback or a new beginning? David stepped further into the room, apparently oblivious to the weight of the moment he had stumbled into. His presence sliced through the air like a knife, injecting an air of authority that left Mike feeling unsettled. Could anyone truly ignore the fragile connection that was beginning to solidify right before them? Celebration. Is that what you call this? Annie shot back, her voice sharper than intended, standing her ground. The fervor in her eyes was unmistakable. Relax, Annie. I didn't mean anything by it, David replied, waving a hand dismissively. I just thought we were here to toast some good news, not tip over chairs. John seemed to shrink back at this, his hopeful moment fading just as quickly as it had ignited. Mike watched as John's body language shifted again, tension creeping back into his shoulders. The moment they had hungered for now felt just out of reach. Can't you see we're trying to have an important conversation? Mike interjected, stepping forward, placing himself between David and the father-daughter duo. David's brows furrowed, a trace of irritation crossing his face. It's not a good time to get emotional, Mike. People are expecting a show of unity here. You know how it looks. Unity? Annie laughed bitterly. You mean a performance? Something for the voters to swallow? John's voice was soft but carrying the weight of concern. Maybe you ought to sit this out, David, Mike said, feeling the adrenaline push him from planning to action. Some things matter more than appearances. Like what? David crossed his arms, looking unconvinced. Family drama? This isn't the place. We have a reputation to hold up. You want a reputation? That's a hollow victory, Annie shot back, breathing heavy. You treat family like a trophy to show off rather than a bond to cherish. Dad, I'm trying to connect with you not just in public, but where it counts. The crowd stirred, eyes darting between the three of them. Mike caught the flicker of doubt that passed over John's face. It was subtle, but it was there. An unsteady truce threatened to collapse beneath the weight of uncertainty. Annie, is he really that important to you? John asked, blinking through the confusion. You need him here for this, why? Because he has power, Dad. But I want to bring you into my world, too. Just being here is a start, she replied, her voice breaking slightly but gaining strength in vulnerability. John's gaze softened as he searched her face, trying to reconcile the daughter he had mostly missed with the passionate young woman standing before him. Mike exchanged glances with Annie, sensing they were towing the line of something monumental. Would John finally see the fighting spirit inside Annie? As David opened his mouth again, ready to dismiss their feelings, John raised his hand, silencing him. No, let me think about this, John said, pausing to weigh his words. I see now there's more to this than I grasped. David's mouth fell slightly agape, clearly taken aback by John's assertion. It was as if a veil had lifted, exposing the fragmentation within their family that had gone unnoticed for too long. Maybe I should hear what Annie has to say, John continued, glancing back at his daughter, hope mingling with uncertainty dancing in his eyes. Thank you, Dad, she said softly, tears now sparkling at the corners of her eyes. Mike felt hopeful, numbing the earlier tension, but before he could exhale, David interjected again, his frustration bubbling over. You're making a mistake. You don't want to air out family secrets here. Maybe I do. Annie shouted suddenly, the room freezing in shocked silence. Maybe if we can't be real with each other, what's the point? The weight of her words echoed through the crowd like a drumbeat, stirring deeper emotions. As she stood tall, a sudden realization hit Mike. This was only the beginning of their chaotic journey. Would they find the courage to face not just the small truths, but the big ones that had haunted their past? With emotions rising, Mike sensed the fragile thread of hope pulling taut again. What raw revelations awaited them, just out of reach, ready to be uncovered? The silence in the room felt heavy, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting. Annie's bold proclamation lingered in the air like an uninvited guest, refusing to back down. Mike could see the tension etched on John's face as he wrestled with the implications of Annie's words. Annie, please, John finally said, his voice trembling. You don't know what you're asking for. There are difficult things. I know, Dad, she replied, stepping closer, her heart racing. But we can't just keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. The past is part of us. It shapes who we are today. And I want you to be a part of my life, not just a shadow in the background. David crossed his arms tighter, irritation morphing to something akin to fear. This isn't the time or place. You have to think about what happens next, what people will say. Maybe it's time people heard the truth. Annie shot back, a spark of defiance igniting within her. She pressed on, desperation tinged with determination. You talk about a reputation, but all I keep thinking is how my childhood was painted with silence. How we swept things under the rug for the sake of image. I want real connections, real conversations. Not a facade anymore. Annie, John faltered, glancing between her and David, as if trying to gauge the room. Mike watched John's defenses crack, that wall built from years of denial beginning to crumble. I don't even know what to say, John finally admitted, a mixture of shame and longing in his voice. I'm scared. What if I don't know how to process what you're suggesting? That's okay, she encouraged gently, the fight in her voice softening. I'm scared too. But we can take this step together. Let me bring you into my world, show you what it means to really share my life with you. I want that connection to be real, not an Instagram post. The crowd murmured with a mixture of sympathy and surprise, as John began to visibly grapple with the magnitude of Annie's request. Something shifted in the atmosphere, a subtle hope flickered amongst the uncertainty. Can you trust me? Annie implored, her eyes shining brightly now with tears of yearning. I don't want to hide anymore. John's gaze drifted toward David, who shifted uncomfortably, as if sensing the shift in loyalty around him. I want to, Annie. But there are scars. Can we really heal? What if healing starts with being honest, Dad? What if it starts with you? She asked, stepping forward to bridge the gap. For a moment, they just stood there, the tension palpable, their eyes locked. Mike could feel the crowd holding its breath, the energy electric and raw. He watched as John's lips moved, forming words he wasn't sure he was ready to speak. David's right about one thing, John said finally, his voice quivering. We've built this family on a foundation that's shaky. To move forward, we need to uncover the truths that have kept us tied up in knots all these years. Annie nodded slowly, taking in his words. Then let us do it together, she urged, a spark of renewed strength lighting up her face again. Let us find our way through this, not just for us, but for our family. The audience was captivated, leaning in closer to witness. Mary, a close friend, whispered to another guest how inspirational this moment felt. It was as if they were all rooting for the breakthrough they could sense was on the horizon. Just remember, David finally choked out, his voice cracking, this could change everything. Exactly, Annie said, hope rising like smoke from a chimney. It could change everything for the better. The moment hung in the air, charged with anticipation and uncertainty. And just as Mike thought they were nearing a breakthrough, a sudden commotion burst through the doors. An unexpected guest had arrived, breaking the high-stakes tension and potentially irrevocably changing the course of their tangled family story once more. Would this surprise be the catalyst for catharsis, or would it drive them further apart? The doors swung wide, and in walked Sarah, Annie's estranged aunt. The room fell silent as all eyes turned towards her. The bright sunlight pouring in behind her silhouetted her figure, giving her an almost ethereal presence. But the joy of seeing her quickly changed to confusion and whispers. Sarah hadn't been a part of their lives for years, and her sudden appearance felt like a storm cloud hovering over a fragile moment of clarity. Sarah! Annie gasped, her heart racing. The mix of excitement and dread flooded her voice. What are you doing here? I had to come, Sarah replied, her voice steady but laced with urgency. I didn't know how to contact you, and I never thought this would be the place. She paused, glancing around the room, sensing the tension that had just shifted. John stood frozen, emotions swirling on his face: surprise, anger, fear. This isn't the time, Sarah, he snapped, the protective instincts of a father rising up. You shouldn't be here. But Annie stepped forward, her heart clamoring against her rib cage. No. I want to know what she has to say. If she's here, maybe it's important, she insisted, her voice rising a little more than she intended. Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes fluttering between Annie and John, weighing her words carefully. Annie, I've discovered things about our family, things I never knew. It's time for the truth to come out. I didn't mean to drop in like this, but you deserve to know. The crowd stirred, whispers crackling through the air like static electricity. Mike could feel the tension shift again, this time sharper, more dangerous. It was the kind of tension that could start fires or put them out. I don't need any more surprises today, John interjected harshly, his voice cracking. The past is the past. Let us not dig it up. Isn't that what you said to Annie just moments ago? Sarah challenged, her voice gaining confidence. You've built your walls tight around family secrets. But you taught me that we can't build a future without knowing where we came from. It's not just about you anymore. I was wrong to keep you in the dark, John stammered, his voice breaking. I was trying to protect you. We all misunderstood what was best for our family. Protect us. Or protect yourself. Annie shot back, her frustration bubbling to the surface again. Just like you've done all along. Annie, please, John started, but she cut him off. No. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We can't hide anymore. Each word felt like a dagger, releasing the pent-up frustration of years. Sarah's right. I need to know what really happened. We need to tear down these walls, Dad. The room seemed to hold its breath, stifled gasps echoing as everyone tried to comprehend the swirling chaos of emotions and revelations. Do you really want to hear this? Sarah asked quietly, as if understanding the weight of her next words. Because once the truth is out, there's no taking it back. This could change everything. Annie's chest tightened. I want to know. I deserve to know. Are you sure? Sarah asked again, her voice filled with both caution and concern. Because sometimes the truth can be more painful than the lies we've wrapped ourselves in. In that moment, the air felt heavy again. Annie glanced at John, at David, and all the weight of years spent in shadows crammed into one poignant moment. Her heart raced as she realized they were standing at the precipice of something monumental. What if it's something we wish we'd never unearthed? John murmured, his hands shaking slightly. Annie straightened her back, determination burning in her eyes. Then we deal with it together, as a family. But before Sarah could respond, another loud commotion erupted from the back, drawing all eyes toward the doors again. Who else could possibly come barging in at this moment? With fluttering hearts and rising stakes, they all turned towards the doorway, uncertainty shrouding what lay ahead. Would this guest bring healing, or deeper wounds? The doors swung open once more, this time revealing a tall, stern-looking woman with a cascade of dark curls and a fierce gaze. There was something oddly familiar about her, but the feeling slipped away quickly as the room collectively tensed again. Annie felt as though she were drowning in a sea of uncertainty, her heart racing even faster than before. "Who are you?" John managed, his voice low but filled with authority, a dad expecting explanations. "It's me, Joanne," the woman replied, taking a step closer. "Annie, I'm your mother's sister." Gasps filled the room, and Annie felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Her mother had spoken little about her family, often brushing off questions with soft deflections. Now it felt as if a whole new chapter of her life was tearing through her like a whirlwind. "Joanne," Sarah muttered, her eyes widening. "What are you doing here?" "I had to come too. I was afraid if I waited any longer, it might be too late," Joanne replied, a long look passed between the two women, heavy with unsaid years and brittle emotions. "There's something I need to tell you all." As she spoke, Annie couldn't shake the feeling that every moment in her life had led to this. She could feel John's tension building beside her, his body was stiff, almost as if he were prepared to fight for everything he held dear. But Annie felt her hopes fluttering cautiously like a bird primed to take flight. "Another family secret?" "Just what we need," John grumbled under his breath. Ignoring John's sarcasm, Annie focused on Joanne. What could possibly be so important that you had to show up now? She felt a blend of anger and curiosity, thoughts racing through her mind. Joanne straightened her back and inhaled deeply, gathering her courage. "It's about your mother," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "There are things you don't know, things about why we lost touch." Annie felt a wave of emotion wash over her. Questions bubbled up: where had her mother come from? Why had she kept secrets? But before she could voice them, Joanne continued. "Your mother was hurting deeply," she said, locking eyes with Annie. "After the accident it changed everything. She lost herself and didn't want to let us in. But we were all searching for her." Annie swallowed hard. The accident, something that was only whispered in her home, loomed larger than ever. She felt the weight of the gathered eyes, a mingled mix of concern, confusion, and curiosity. "Why all don't know the truth, do you?" Joanne asked the room. "This family, it was broken long before you realized. And those wounds festered because we didn't face them together. We were all too scared." "Scared of what?" "Of speaking the truth." John shot back. His frustration boiled over. "We can't fix anything if we keep unearthing old ghosts." "Unless those ghosts are the key to our healing," Sarah interjected softly, glancing between John and Joanne. "What if the truth is the only lifeline we have left?" Annie took a step forward, feeling more resolute than ever. "I'll listen, we all should. Whatever it is, we need to confront this together." The determination in her voice surprised even herself. Joanne nodded, her expression softening, relief mixing with fear. "Then you deserve to know everything." As she opened her mouth to share the story, the air was thick with anticipation. Annie felt like she was on the edge of a cliff, ready to dive into deep, uncharted waters. Would this plunge unlock bonds that had long since rusted? But just then, the whisper of another door creaking open sent echoes of surprise through the gathering again. Another face appeared in the doorway, the last person anyone would expect to see at that moment. What fresh chaos would this newcomer bring? As everyone turned toward the door, an elderly figure stepped into the room, leaning heavily on a cane. It was Grandma Alice, Annie's beloved grandmother, her face lined with wisdom and worry. The room fell into a hush, a collective breath held as the gravity of her arrival thrummed through the air. "Annie, my dear," she said, her voice quaking slightly but filled with warmth. I heard the commotion from down the road. I had to come. Grandma. Annie rushed forward, her heart swelling with affection, but also dread. The unexpected arrival felt like another layer to the already complicated situation. Are you okay? I'm fine, just old, Alice replied, a small smile breaking through, but worry lingered in her eyes. But dear, you need to know what your mother went through. And why it's crucial that we've found each other again. Annie's heart raced. She knew her mother had kept secrets, but the recitation of pain sounded like a beckoning call to confront those very shadows. What do you know? She asked, the words tumbling out. I know what it feels like to be torn apart by silence, Alice began, her gaze shifting among a sea of faces. When your mother lost her sister, she paused, her voice thick with emotion, something in her shattered. And rather than reach out to us, she closed herself off, building walls higher than any we'd ever seen. Tell me everything, Annie urged, feeling the intensity building inside her, a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Please. Alice glanced at John, and for a heartbeat, sadness crossed her expression. Your mother thought she was protecting you, she believed love was best kept hidden behind the facade of perfection. But perfection is a prism, it breaks light into a million colors, but none of them show the whole picture. We lost each other along the way because we never shared our pain, we only shared smiles. The echo of her words settled heavy in the room. Annie felt all eyes on her, searching, hoping. Hope pulsed through her veins. Was this the key to opening the door long shut in their family? I need to hear this, John said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. If we're going to mend this, we can't keep burying everything beneath the surface. Exactly, Alice affirmed, her fierce resolve shining through as she squared her shoulders. The past may be painful, but it's necessary. We can't rewrite it, but we can learn to live with it. As Alice began to recount her memories of laughter, loss, and the burdens that festered within her family, Annie felt a wave of emotions crashing over her. Every story revealed another thread binding their lives together. It wasn't just her mother's sadness, it was about their whole family, a tapestry woven with both love and pain. John stood tall, grappling with revelations, regret, and something else, understanding. It was uncharted territory for him, but also breathtakingly exhilarating. You're right. I've hidden behind my own disappointments for too long, he finally admitted, squeezing Annie's hand. Sometimes love isn't the absence of struggle, but the acceptance of it. Thank you for saying that, Dad, Annie whispered, feeling embers of bond reignite between them. Maybe it's time we all start revealing our truths, Sarah interjected, looking fiercely into the crowd. The only way forward is to stop pretending we're different, we're all bound by the same struggles and strengths. Hope swirled through the gathering, intertwining with the chaotic emotions that had danced at the edges. The walls built on wealth and pretense were cracking. The community around them, friends, family, exchanged nods of agreement, their resolve building. Just when the atmosphere began to lighten with understanding, typical chatter swelled as the doors swung open again. They turned collectively, hearts pounding, waiting for another unexpected interjection, but this time, it was quiet. Two wide-eyed children peeked through the doors, Annie's adorable little cousins, colorful balloons bobbling in their tiny hands. Annie! Can we come in? One of them squealed, lighting up the room with innocence and joy. Laughter permeated the serious undertone, something so pure amid the chaos. In that moment, something deeper clicked for everyone. Absolutely. Come on in. We need a little more joy, Annie said, movement surging through the gathering as the children rushed forward. Amidst the stirring emotions of the adults, the very essence of family began to emerge, vulnerable yet bright, tangled but nurturing. As the little ones darted between the legs of their elders, cheers erupted once again. It was as if the very fabric of love was being stitched together anew, showing the way out of underlying pain and toward acceptance. In that toss of balloons, the struggles of the past were temporarily set aside, replaced by small hands grasping tightly to one another, the beginning of a new definition of family. It was a beautiful kaleidoscope of flaws and strengths merging into one vibrant whole. Annie turned her gaze back toward the adults as they joined in the laughter, but something sparked anew within her father and grandmother, an unspoken promise to face lingering shadows together. Life had given them unexpected adversities, and yet there they stood, determined to reaffirm their love despite it all. Together, John whispered, echoing the sentiment as he grabbed Annie's hands again, this time with certainty. "We'll face it all together." And as the celebration swirled around them, something felt distinctly different, forging connections born out of truth, resilience, and love. They weren't just moving forward, they were moving smartly together, breathing in life's uncertainties while anchored in each other. The future glinted brightly, brimming with potential. Maybe they wouldn't have all the answers yet, maybe there would be obstacles on the road ahead, but they now shared a promise, a family willing to confront anything when united. A bond reaffirmed, truths revealed, and a journey begun, all wrapped in the kind of radiant love that flourished even in the clutches of pain. The real celebration had only just begun. Now it was time for everyone to embrace that transformation. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, your support matters. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. You are part of this family. And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. The world needs to hear these stories.